Hello, this is Paul Connett. About 18 years ago, we started a battle against a trash municipal waste incinerator here in St. Lawrence County. I had little idea at the time that it was going to take us 5.5 years to stop that incinerator, and that this whole battle would blossom out into going to 49 states in the United States and 47 other countries. 17 years ago, with my colleague Roger Bailey, I began to make a series of videotapes, first of all depicting the dangers of incineration and later landfills, but also some of the successful alternatives. The typical attitude of politicians is usually you either burn it or you bury it. If you don't want incinerators, you get landfills. You don't want landfills, you get incinerators. And we argued 18 years ago, and we're still arguing today, that there is a third way, which is sometimes called recycling. Actually, it's much more than recycling. It's separation at source, it's reuse and repair of objects, it's recycling of materials back to industry, it's nature's recycling, composting, which is actually the most important of all the things that we do, because it's precisely the organic waste which causes so many problems in landfills. And then it's toxic removal, and then it's a screening of the residuals before we finally put what we hope is a non-toxic material into a landfill and stabilized organic material into a landfill. That's a bit of a mouthful. And so today people are using a different word. They're using the concept of zero waste. Zero waste recognizes that waste is a human invention. Nature doesn't make any waste, and if we were really clever, we'd be much more like nature. Now, of course, that's quite contrary to many of the people, many of the powerful people in companies and in local jurisdictions who make the decisions on this issue. For them, the question is, how do you get rid of waste? Zero waste says no. Our job is not to get rid of waste. Our job is not to make it. How do you design waste out of the system? Well, there's a lot to do with recycling, reusing and composting, but that's not enough, because all of that is at the back end. If we're really going to get to zero, we've got to get to the front end of the problem. We've got to get to industry. We've got to demand from industry packaging which they take back, reusable packaging. We've got to demand from them that they take back objects and take back toxics. In this way, they will design the objects without toxics or less toxics, because that will save them money. In a nutshell, we want extended producer responsibility. Now, whilst I've been talking about this and other people have been talking about this, we have been shooting videotapes of successful models. I'm one of those people that doesn't believe we're going to get zero waste overnight. It's going to take 15, 20 years. We can get a lot from communities in maybe 5 years, and Nova Scotia has shown that. But in terms of the overall getting very close to zero, this is going to take quite a bit of time, and not everybody is going to move as fast as others. So what I'm hoping we can do with these videotapes is to capture model solutions, capture what I call little pieces of zero. Now, these little pieces of zero might be what individuals are doing, they might be what companies are doing, they might be what communities are doing. But the idea is that you add up all these pieces of zero together, you've got a model for zero waste. Now, we're going to make a lot of these tapes. This first collection, I'm focusing on creativity and leadership. We need good leadership in industry, we need good leadership locally, we need good leadership amongst citizens and voluntary organizations. And we particularly want creativity. For me, landfilling, dumping all your discarded materials into a landfill, is really boring. And incineration, where you burn everything, is really boring. And it's really boring to spend millions of dollars trying to perfect a bad idea. Our task in the 21st century is not to destroy materials, but to recover them and make sure that the materials and objects that we use go on for as long as possible so that we can share them with future generations. And this is where creativity comes in. And we're going to spotlight in this videotape little pieces of Zero, little pieces of action from individuals in advertising, individuals in the waste industry or the recycling industry, individuals in business, all kinds of examples of creativity. Even some artists are doing some remarkable things with discarded materials. Let's go and have a look at some of them. This first piece of Zero really takes me down memory lane. Roger Bailey and I first used this clip in a videotape we made in 1987. We obtained it from a television company in Rockford, Illinois. And this particular piece shows how creative a community can be in trying to encourage people to separate their trash.
Drizzling wet Monday morning, and here's this guy doing warm-ups in a Rockford, Illinois parking lot. He's dressed funny, he's got a truck he must have stolen from a circus, and he's waiting for a friend.
Jim, all set to pick up the garbage.
Let's do it.
I haven't had any breakfast this morning, so let's hope we find something good in that garbage this morning.
Let's go.
Todd Crowdy is well known in Rockford. He's the flashy trash man who gives away big money to people who win Rockford's Cash for Trash game.
Time to make some garbage.
Todd and his partner, certified public accountant Jim Milliken, have every intention of going through this household's garbage, piece by smelly piece if necessary, to determine whether they have a winner this week.
Ooh, looks like we got some tasty treats this morning in this stuff. Good morning there. You must be Pete Anderson.
I am.
I bet you, can you guess what's going on here this morning?
I think so. Are you checking my garbage?
That's right, Cash for Trash. Do you think we have a winner this morning?
Well, I hope so.
I'm kind of like the game show host to this program.
Want to play? The rules are simple. Separate aluminum cans and newspaper from the rest of your garbage when you put it out for pickup. If your name is picked at random from the list of Rockford residents, and Todd and Jim can paw through your garbage without finding any aluminum cans or newspapers, you win $1,000.
Oh no, I think I have found, 2 aluminum cans.
Okay,
That's
there you
too
go.
bad.
That's it.
You don't
Too
win
bad.
money with aluminum cans that way.
Why is Rockford
much a
playing a
wrap.
game with your garbage?
That's it.
Recycling is something that basically everybody should do, and everybody knows that they should do it. You put up that $1 reward, and it's like, now it's fun, you know? Before it was a little bit of a chore. Now that you can win money, this is fun.
The idea for the Cash for Trash game came from a Rockford ad agency, the one Todd works for, the one owned by his father. This is the way they kicked off the campaign on Rockford television a few months ago.
It is what my father describes as the classic example of typecasting. I mean, he says if anybody was right for this role, it was me.
The Trashman cometh and he wants to make you rich.
Have you guys all seen me before? How many of you seen me
If the
before?
Cash for Trash game is fun, the goal of the game is a serious one, to postpone the need for a new landfill. The stakes are high. Rockford is the second largest city in Illinois. If it can significantly reduce its garbage output, the savings could run into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sure, other cities have tried to get recycling going, but not the way Rockford has.
See, I'm giving away big money here. It's not real, but it's big, isn't it?
Jim and Todd have averaged a winner every other week, and inevitably, those winners find a little of the trash man's showmanship rubs off on them. Like the time Todd and Jim surprised a high school teacher at an assembly program.
Whose name did we pick for Cash for Trash this week, Mr. Milliken?
One Robert McVinney. About 6 o'clock the other morning, Todd and I were in his neighborhood in front of his house at 6 o'clock in the a.m. We picked up his trash, and we're here to give him a check for $2,000.
Since the Cash for Trash game started, the recycling effort in Rockford has quadrupled. The program has been written up in the New York Times and taped by Japanese television, and everyone agrees a lot of the credit for the success of the game is due to the flashy trash man himself.
It is really fun to go out because this is a positive program. Everybody you talk to is very excited about this, and they like to tell you, yeah, come to my house, you know, I'm separating for you. So it's really, that's what's fun, is that everybody's so excited about this program.
The Trashman cometh and he wants to make you rich.
The Trashman's coming, what you gonna do? The Trashman's coming, he's looking for you. The Trashman's coming, he's got a surprise. The Trashman's coming,
This next piece of Zero is a marvelous example of creativity coming from a business and stimulating a very successful business. This was started by two women, Susan Helliwell, a homemaker, and Jennifer Corson. And Jennifer Corson is also the author of this book, The Resourceful Renovator. And I'll read from the back here. By imaginatively and creatively reusing materials, a resourceful renovator conserves energy, saves money, and creates space that is uniquely beautiful. From moving entire houses to salvaging a surprising range of materials, this book will inspire you to push the limits of your creativity. You'll never see an old door or window frame in the same way again. And that's true of this beautiful book, and it is also true of this very exciting business in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
We've been in business since 1994, and the impetus for our business, my partner Jennifer Corson and I didn't really know each other before we started in this business, but we met through a mutual acquaintance, and we had both had an interest in renovating, and I came at it from a homeowner's point of view, and she came at it from an architectural design point of view. You know, some of the more common products that we would get here would be doors, lots and lots of doors, so doors on their own and also with hardware, so door hinges, mortise sets, knobs, and those are things that we see a lot of. Yeah. Also sell stair parts, spindles, newel posts, railings. Pedestal sinks, the freestanding, old-fashioned porcelain or else cast iron with a porcelain finish on them. And we also sell a lot of the freestanding, old-fashioned cast iron bathtubs with the feet on the bottom. This is our line of furniture that we make out of our salvage materials. So, for example, we have this cabinet, which we call our wall cabinet, and it's came out of finding a way of dealing with all these little multi-pane windows that we have that people don't really want to use in their houses anymore because they're not very energy efficient. Now these are what we call our column cabinets, and for these, sometimes we will take a 4-panel door and cut it down the middle, so to make 4 smaller doors out of a 4-panel door, and we'll use the smaller panels at the bottom for low cabinets and the taller panels for tall cabinets. But in this particular case, this door is actually the end of a pew. Pews were made in 1842, so they were beautiful, beautiful wood. Anyway, so we've used the ends of the pews for doors. And the other thing that we did with the pews is we used the seats of the pews, which were beautiful old hand-planed pine boards, and we used those to make harvest tables. And I think this is the last harvest table out of those pews.
Quite a time ago there was a song, "What's That Behind the Green Door?" Well, what we're going to find today is that there's a piece of zero behind that green door. And this piece of zero we're calling art versus waste.
Right now, presently, we have Drew, who's a printmaker, papermaker. We have Kara, who's a printmaker, and she's also a painter. Terry's a furniture maker, printmaker. She also does paintings and drawings. And I do paintings and a little bit of photography. And Josh does photography, video, and found art.
Tell us about what you do.
I build full-scale installations, and what that is, traditionally people know sculpture, which is basically anything 3D. You can put that in your bathroom, you know, in your front yard, wherever. An installation kind of incorporates the whole environment. Basically, what I did is I called up all the all the businesses around this Burlington area and got all the donations, anything that they were going to throw out. I called carpet places. Can I use your samples? They say, yeah, these are last year's. Take them. Vinyl, the guys that cover seats in restaurants, they're like, these are all the scraps. You can have these. I used plywood from people throwing out stuff working on the church in my town.
Now, do you have a thing about waste? I mean, is this just a convenience for you, or do you feel you're sort of a kind of mission to?
No, it's definitely part of it. Yeah. We're messing this place up, And so the first thing I thought about is what causes this, you know? And it's overconsumption, where it's taking our resources and just burning them. And one thing I always wanted to do is take what people would throw out and bring it back to them again. So instead of having the landfills and all that, they would actually want this stuff again. So I was kind of a, you know, an intermediate or whatever, a mediator into, instead of throwing it out, bringing it back, you know?
And producing something worthwhile, something beautiful.
Exactly.
Out of rubbish, out of what other people thought was rubbish.
There's different ways to make art, and I'm not going to say there's one versus another, but one is to come up with a preconceived idea of art. Let's make a marble sculpture. So you get your marble and you kind of design it all. When you work with found materials, it's a totally different kind of thought process. You work with what you have, and that's always been a big thing for me. Instead of dreaming up something and going to get it, buying it and bringing it in, work with what I have. And it's very interesting. I might end up with a tailpipe, work with this. I might end up with fabric, work with this, you know.
Tell us about some of the materials that you had in your hand. What did they become in this room?
Well, I called a tile factory, and they sell the big tiles for, you know, bathrooms or whatever. And I asked them, could they give me, and they said no, but we have samples that we give out all the time to anybody who asks them. So I got all these samples, and what I did, there's a little picture of a bathroom. It was over on this wall over here, and I kind of made a tile wall just like a bathroom would have out of these little tiles. So that's one.
Yeah.
Another one, I took this kind of cheap plywood. It's not the greatest stuff in the world. Not many people like it. It's not good working material, and I made trees out of it. That's what I love, is taking something from our everyday and changing it.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind every time that, wow, I could have done that. Like, there's a teeter-totter in here, which was a piece of wood. Well, if you look at it, the materials, anybody would have just said that is garbage, and it goes out to garbage. But more people had fun on that. Bigger smiles in Burlington were had because of that, you know?
What is a teeter-totter?
Seesaw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And they enjoyed that. Yeah.
Oh, they loved it. I mean, everybody was riding that thing. And that, to look at it, it was just sitting in a dumpster the other day, you know?
Yeah.
I like to do monochromatic prints using woodcuts onto handmade paper. So what I do to make my paper is I take old linens and old jeans and fabrics from the local thrift shops that they're going to discard.
So you're saying, after they've used the old clothes and they sold the old clothes back for reuse, and after they've recovered some of the material for other uses, quilts and things, you come in and take the junky stuff that's left after that and convert it into a pulp.
Yeah. You start by cutting the jeans up, and what you want to do is break the jeans apart to turn it into a pulpy mesh. You really have to like transform the composition of it. And so you then cook it, put it in a big jug or a big cooking pan pot, and then you add like some soda ash.
Soda ash is sodium hydroxide.
Yep. And that helps clean it and helps loosen up the fibers. Yep. Break up the cellulose. And then you're going to take that, clean out all the soda ash out of that with a hose, and then you're going to slowly add it to this beater.
To the beater.
While circulating water.
Okay.
And then this thing slowly grinds it down into the pulp that you see here.
So now, what was the clothing that went into that?
This is a pair of jeans.
Pair of jeans.
Yeah.
We're looking at a bucket of jeans. Okay. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So once you've got this pulp, then what do you do?
Okay, so then you have, like, what I do is get many different colors of pulp. So I go out and find like a gray pair of pants or a blue pair of pajamas or maybe a purple shirt or something like that. And I use those different types of pulp that I create to make a landscape kind of backdrop. So I'm going to create this purple cloud by kind of pouring the pulp in there. And what happens is, because it's flooded, I can kind of just generally pour this in, and I can move the pulp around after I put it in there. And then you drain it, and all the water pours out, settling the pulp on top of this screen. Okay. And then you press it using felts and let it dry by air. The pulp is dried on the screen, and we're going to slowly pull it off. Because it's dry, you can do this. Just got to make sure it doesn't tear.
Eureka.
And Eureka. And then what I do is I print on this using wood block kind of wood
so
cut.
this is just the background.
Yeah, this ends up being the background for woodcuts. It's kind of neat to take something that has no value and it's about to go to a landfill and actually give it some substantial amount of value through using it again.
Well, we've seen what some young artists can do with discarded materials and paint. Now we're going to see what somebody is doing with old paint. And we're going to see this in Canberra, Australia. Last summer in July of 2002, I was lucky enough to go to Canberra, which was very exciting because this is the first community that used the words zero waste, or to be more precise, no waste. They said no waste to landfill by 2010. So I was able to see that program, but during my investigation of their program, I was able to find this unusual paint store. Well, Graham, this is a pretty special paint shop. Tell us about it.
It certainly is. This is called the Mitchell Paint Centre, and the guy here is actually a paint manufacturer who is specialised in recycling old paint. What he does is accepts any old paint that people have, and he goes through a process of checking it, remixing it, blending it, recanning it, and then he sells it as a renewed paint, which he claims, and from experience I can attest to, performs as well as any new paint does. But it's sold at roughly half of the price of new paint, and it's a very good value-adding opportunity to get rid of all of those old tins of paint that people have around and get them back into paint rather than just letting it dry out and burying it in landfill.
All it is removing the paint out of those cans. You clean it, you recan it. Most of it has to be recanned because with water-based paints you get rust and dirt in there. Yeah. So sometimes you strain it 3 times before you get it clean enough again for a saleable product. And of course with the oil-based paints there's only a couple of things happen there. Is the dryers do break down a bit, they're very easily replaced, and of course if you replace something you weaken the paint off a little bit, so you can do something about that. So you replace a resin, put a resin back into the paint, so you bring it back up to top quality. Yeah.
You know a lot about paint.
All my life.
How many years have you been in the paint?
Well, I started as a painter at 14 years of age, and I painted for about 15 years, and then went on to work on manufacturing. Of course, we had a local factory here in Queanbeyan, and I went to work there, and that's when I really learned something about paint, because you can be a painter all your life. Unless you go and see how it's made, you're never going to know really what's going on. But there the whole thing has been recycled. Yeah. The can itself, I better grab one of those and show you. Now this is the colourant that all paint manufacturers use to colour up their paint. Yeah. Is that. And all these cans, they shouldn't be, but there's a lot of waste, because if you fill these cans you'll feel that there's probably that much colourant still left in the bottom. It shouldn't be there, but big companies don't have the control over their staff enough to stop this waste. This is a shocking waste, because some of these things are $40 a litre for this. Yeah. So if you've got that much left in the bottom, and the can itself is always brand new, because they probably use a couple of hundred of these a week. Yep. Most of the manufacturing places we'd have here in Australia, and sometimes a lot more. But all that used to go into landfill.
And tell us again about that dab. That tells you what?
It tells you that the paint's got good adhesion. Yep. It's got good covering power. Yep. And also that it's drying properly, which is very important with oil-based enamels, because that's the thing you've got to be certain of. Yeah. Is that they do dry properly.
And show us your label now, the renewed paint. Oh, there it is. Yeah. There's your label.
Yeah, that's the label.
Okay.
And we've got the little no waste by the year 2010. As you go around it, and here we are, just the information that you're going to need. This has got to be passed on. It's no use me knowing all this unless somebody else learns what's going on here, you know? Yeah. And it'd probably take about, to train somebody up, it'd probably take about 2 to 3 years to do it properly, because if you bring people in, it might be all right if you've got a painter in, you have some idea where to start, but if you just brought anybody in, it's going to take a long time.
It's a skill. It's a skill and experience.
Yeah.
And you'd like to share that before you retire.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Barry, thanks so much for showing us your shop. It's great.
That's fine.
Well, this next piece of Zero is very close to my heart. It's another trip down memory lane. Back in 1987, we shot a wonderful interview with Joe Garbarino, who at that time was running one of the largest recycling programs in the United States. Joe has a wonderful sense of humor. In fact, he's provided the best definition of waste I've ever heard, which is a busload of consultants going over the Niagara Falls with 3 empty seats in it. We could have got rid of 3 more of those rascals. There are some good consultants out there. Anyway, in this videotape, we're going to hear Joe talk about his piggies. Joe, you found a loaf of bread in the garbage one day when you were sorting it through, when you were making measurements for volume and so on. What was your response to finding a loaf of bread in the garbage?
It wasn't a loaf. It was a constant 50, 100, 200 loaves a day. And as soon as I saw that bread on a daily basis, as I was monitoring the trash because of the study that I was making, it was just insanity. It was a mortal sin to me to waste a slice, let alone a loaf. I went out immediately and bought 3 pigs. 3 months later, I asked the city manager how much trouble I can get into the city and still get into heaven. And he says, Joe, what did you do now? I said, I didn't do anything, but I says, I'd like to raise a few pigs as a recycling project, you know. And he said, you got to be kidding me. It was Christmas time, and I was bringing him a couple of bottles of wine, and he says, Joe, do me a favor, make believe you didn't talk to me. I said, okay. And in the meantime, he's now in San Jose as city manager, and I've told everybody that the city manager gave him the approval, and it took him 3 years to find out that I had about 30 pigs down here. So we've just gotten our permit now, and kids come down to tour the recycling center. They come down, they feed the animals, they feed the duckies, the chickies, and they bring hay so on once in a while. And we're recycling 200-300 loaves of bread. We're recycling these donuts. There's nothing wrong with these donuts right here. You know, you can eat these donuts yourself. Matter of fact, I eat them now. There's nothing wrong with these donuts. I bought some donuts in Norway last week here that were 10 times more stale than this donut. So my piggies love this, and so do I. So anyway, it's just criminal to waste all this bread over here. And that's why some people think I'm crazy, just a few of them. But like I say, when you soak this in bread, there are many, many millions of people throughout the well, not the United States, but probably the United States and the world that don't have a loaf of bread tonight. Yeah. And yet, at least my conscience is clear, because it's no longer going to the landfill. It's coming and delivered here. I mix it with that milk. My pigs and animals eat it. And I'm recycling another project here. I'm recycling more food in a different way, just like I recycle that wood.
And you've got some very special pigs here, I understand.
I have the state champion Yorkshire hog or pig or whatever you want to call it, that was raised by someone down in the valley here in Turlock. And each year there are 30 of us that belong to the Pig Lovers of America, all garbage men. And for the fun of it, and of course to keep the program going with 4-H, we'll raise enough money that we won't let anyone outbid us on the Grand Champion hog at the Cow Palace every year. So last year we spent $2,200 for the champion, and this year was $3,000. But we have a lot of fun doing it. We've helped the 4-H club keep that thing going. They've made more money off of these pigs now than they ever have. And I hope to raise $10,000 and buy more pigs and more animals.
Now you have a wild pig here too.
We also have a wild pig that was picked up. Evidently someone must have shot the mother, and they brought it into me. It was 2 days old, and we were bottle feeding it every day. So that pig is just as domestic as the rest of them. And I hope to crossbreed the wild pig with the domestic pigs and now go backwards in evolution and hope to tame the rest of them as they come down the road. But in the meantime, it's a fun project. Gets your mind off the problems and that we all have in solid waste. And feeding animals and taking care of them is like a tranquilizer for me. I don't drink beer, wine, or whiskey, or beer, or any of that, but I certainly enjoy coming over here and talking to the piggies once in a while and telling them about all my problems. And the only answer that I get is, you know, and I know, I can tell that these piggies love me. they appreciate it. And I can hear them say, Joe, thank you. I really appreciate this loaf of bread. And when you look at those long eyelashes, as I do every day, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's not funny. It's the truth. I truly enjoy doing this. I love coming to work.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for a different way to do something that's that no one else is doing.
Yeah.
And it really isn't, there's no magic here.
Yeah.
You've got to find something that you can do something with and then execute it and then move it on. And I saw all this wood being buried, you know, and I figured I'd start out with some firewood for my house. Then I had 5 cords, 10 cords, 500 cords, and now I'm selling firewood. I sell 2,000 or 3,000 cords of firewood each year.
Just give me a list of all the things that you are managing to get out of that waste stream, preventing it going from a landfill.
You know, you start here with bottles, cans, newspapers, and PET bottles. And, of course, we buy back aluminum and brass and copper. And then in the dump itself, we take out all the brush, all the wood, and we grind that up, sell it for fuel. We shake it on a screen, and then we take out the fines so they don't escape into the atmosphere. So we have a clean burn, and we sell the sawdust and sand to the nursery people. They make plants from it. And, of course, on the other side, we sell textiles, rags, and we sell bottles, cans, again, in paper, cardboard, again, wood we pick out. And we pick out toasters, we pick out waffle irons, anything made out of metal, tin and iron, we take it all out, copper and brass. So getting back to this end of it, then we take the logs out, and rather than grind them up and just make sawdust out of them at $25 or $26 a ton, I'm selling these now by the cord and getting about $120 per cord of firewood. So when I'm not doing bottles, cans, and we've got a lapse in time, I'll shift 2 or 3 men over here and we'll split wood for a while. And it all started out as a lark, and so did the chickens, and I'm not buying eggs anymore. I get 30 eggs a day, and they're fresh. We're donating pigs to St. Vincent de Paul, which is an agency that's feeding poor people. And it's the joy of doing it. It might be trash and garbage to somebody else, but it's a way of life. Always has been for me and my father and his colleagues before him. We're just doing it in a better way now, and there is a better way. And the better way is to do what we did 30, 40 years ago, recycle.
Yeah.
And pick out the materials. We used to sell eyeglasses, 10, 15 cents each. You came into a counter, you put your eyes, and if you can see what you could see, you bought it. We sold bones, all on the garbage truck as we went from house to house in San Francisco. And there was a market for all that. And there still is a market, but we need a better market, and we need help getting that market going. But it can be done without a doubt, and I'm doing it. It certainly beats burning it and breathing fumes. This wind that we've got now, I wouldn't want to be breathing that plastic that they're burning and the problems that it's causing. And certainly there's an ash problem there that's full of lead and other contaminants, and you'd have to take that to a Class 1 dump. So they haven't solved that problem. It's not the quick fix that they think it is. They're going to pay for that in the future. What we should be doing now is the sensible thing, and that's to recycle as much as you can, reduce the waste by 40 and 50%, and that can be done with the technology that's available today.
Can we change the politicians?
Yeah, they're going to change because the pressure is on them now. You've seen that barge heading for thousands of miles for 60 days. That's brought it to their attention now. And when that stuff starts to be brought to their capitals, to their city halls, they're going to have to sit down and legislate and say, hey, if you can't make an item that can be recycled, you can't make that anymore. They're making billions of plastic bags here. Not one, but billions. Eliminate the plastic, substitute it for paper, and that's all more recycle markets for us. Because we do need the markets. They fluctuate horribly. And but I'm not worried about whether the price of paper goes up or down. The cost of the removal of garbage today certainly makes it worthwhile to recycle today.
The avoided disposal
That's
cost.
right. That's where it's at.
A tiny 5% of the people in the world consume 1/3 of its resources and produce almost half the non-organic waste. Those people are us.
Well, we've talked about pieces of zero. In this section, we have lots of little pieces of zero. Here's the first one, this delightful table container for oddments. This is made out of woven paper. This is our first example, then, of a piece of a practical object which is made out of discarded materials, very, very beautifully crafted, and also a job creator, a cottage industry created. This is, let me read you the legend on this. It's made by It's actually called God's Craft, and it says God's Craft products are handmade by the residents of Smoky Mountain, Manila, from recycled materials. They provide jobs for those most in need, conserve our resources, and help preserve Mother Earth. Indeed, jobs where they're really needed. Smoky Mountain, Manila is the site of a notorious landfill which has been burning for years and polluting the atmosphere, and they've had people picking that landfill for years. Instead of picking the landfill, these people can use discarded materials and make them into saleable objects. Even more elaborate is this handbag here, made again out of woven paper from newspapers and magazines. Beautiful. I mean, it's almost a work of art. It's a shame to use it. The paper's been protected by varnish to give it more robustness, but I would never use it. It's just too beautiful. And also, out of paper again, are these necklaces. These little necklaces from a distance, they look like ceramic pieces or stone or something like that. They're actually from compressed paper wedges, and very colorful, very creative, and again, earning somebody some work. This is a delight here. Here are a pair of slippers. I guess these could be used on the beach, out of old juice containers. Can you believe that? Old juice containers being made into slippers. That's from the same group in Manila. Moving over to India, we have this delightful wallet made out of handcrafted paper, jute, and offcuts from the clothing industry. And in this case, this is put together by street children. This is made by strong street children and rural women. The group is called Calm Marg, and it's from New Delhi, India. And again, this is providing jobs for people that desperately need them, and very, very beautiful objects for those who can afford them. I think they're marketed in Europe. Also in India, from the tourist area of Kovalam in the state of Kerala, they've had a problem with plastic bags being thrown all over the place, upsetting the tourists. So the hoteliers have got together to do all kinds of exciting things, including developing a cottage industry where women are being trained to make these delightful shopping bags out of old newspapers, which are used and sold in the supermarkets or given in the supermarkets instead of plastic bags. And of course, after the end of their useful life, these can be composted. So that's a very exciting development too. And that's called Zero Waste Center in Kovalam. Also in India, also in Kovalam, they make these lovely jugs and all kinds of drinking and eating utensils out of old coconut shells. It's amazing how much use people can get out of the coconut. Of course, you can drink the milk, you can eat the flesh. The matting is used for mats and things like that. And here the shell is being made for very, very robust utensils. And over in Vietnam, we have another cottage industry which is converting beer cans and soda cans into these lovely toys or ornaments. This, of course, made out of old Heineken cans, this out of Coca-Cola cans, a jet fighter, and a scooter. Absolutely magnificent, intricate work here. And they've taken something which in the United States you get 10 cents for back if you take it back to a deposit center. But here is something that I bought. These were bought for $10 each in the Netherlands. So talk about value added. Junk in some places, 10 cents in another. But with this skill and creativity, this is $10, and that means useful employment for some people in Vietnam. And over now to South Africa, where again the first item here that I bought from a street salesman is a little insect made out of this part is made out of a can, and of course this part is made out of wire. It looks like a praying mantis. Beautiful piece of work. And the street salesman told me he would give me a lifetime guarantee on that, which I thought was rather amusing. Chances of me finding him again are pretty small. Anyway, it wasn't very expensive. And here is a motorbike made out of coiled wire. You see a lot of this craft work in Africa. I guess they've got a lot of wire, it's a cheap material, and then they, again, value added, make this into these delightful motorbikes and other things. Even the wheels here are made from insulating tape. So again, very beautiful pieces of Zero, which combine both creativity and leadership. Leadership from NGOs who saw the value of using these discarded materials and using these people who are desperately unemployed, desperately poor, putting the two together and producing some very practical and very beautiful objects for the rest of us to use and to buy. For this next piece of Zero, we're going to Halifax, Nova Scotia. Back in the middle 90s, there was a huge discussion first about expanding a landfill, and the people didn't want that, and then they proposed an incinerator and the people didn't want that either. And then at this point the government of Nova Scotia said to the citizens, well, if you don't want landfills, you don't want incinerators, what do you want? And they gave the citizens the consultant reports and all the data that they needed to come up with their own program, which they did. And within 5 years, Nova Scotia has reduced the amount of waste going to landfills by 50%. Here, I'm going to share with you the first time I heard Barry Friesen talk about this program. It was during the launch of Target Zero Canada in Toronto in November of 2000. And I remember back to that day, and I couldn't believe it. I'd never heard a bureaucrat get as excited about one of these programs as you would expect from an activist or somebody working for an NGO. So I hope you will be as excited as I was at that time to hear Barry talk about the program. And then we got a little extra at the end, because at the end of his presentation he told us that his son, his 9-year-old son Justin, has made a little videotape himself. In which, amongst other things, he interviewed the Prime Minister of Canada, just 9 years of age. We've called this piece of Zero, Like Father, Like Son.
Nova Scotia is now the first province in Canada to achieve 50% diversion of solid waste. The only province to achieve the 50% diversion of solid waste by the year 2000. Isn't that great? Yeah. Seriously, and it's due to the industries and the people and the municipalities in Nova Scotia for that to happen. And by doing so, by doing what we've done, we've created an initiative to develop whole new industries and solutions. Not just the environmental benefit that we get out of not creating that waste, but we have whole new industries. And we're also the North American leaders in solid waste resource management. We return more than 160 million beverage containers every year. That's an 80% return rate on all pop and juice containers. 100% of Nova Scotians have access to curbside recycling. 3/4 of the Nova Scotian residents have access to curbside collection of all organic material for composting. And when I say all organic material, not just leaf and yard waste, but all meat, fish, bones, the whole works of it is collected separately and from homes and taken to centralized composting facilities for composting. More than 900,000, almost 1 million used tires every year are diverted from our landfills for new resources. We have no open burning dumps left in Nova Scotia, and we have about 3,200 jobs associated, direct jobs associated with solid waste resource management. In Nova Scotia, we can process all of our newspapers, all of our corrugated cardboard, all of our organics, all of our glass, our paint, our plastic bottles we produce. We have industries, we have insulation manufacturers, wallboard manufacturers, and glass producers that all use resources that we recovered from the waste stream. We have new renovation and construction demolition industries that now, instead of tearing down a building with a wrecking ball, they disassemble it, either reuse or sell the materials for reuse and recycling. And there's many more businesses to come online. The economy has produced new forms of cooperation. We have a plant in Prince Edward Island that's looking to process all of the agricultural plastic film. It's becoming more and more common. In Newfoundland, they have another plant there that's being built to process a lot of other types of plastic films. Much of our glass bottles goes to New Brunswick to be reprocessed into new glass bottles and jars, not to mention we have glass industries in Nova Scotia that take other types of glass. And in Nova Scotia, we recycle all of the 4 provinces' plastic pop bottles. So if you think that our new way of managing solid waste resource management isn't a benefit, just ask the 3,200 families across our province who owe their paychecks to solid waste resources. There are 10 times more jobs in recycling than there is in landfilling. And so you have the added benefit of environment and the economy, and there's very, very few things that can happen where those two can go hand in hand. And one last point, you know, when you look at our children, you see what the recycling effort is all about. It's providing a better country and a better world for our kids. And it's about teaching our children and our children teaching us about how to protect the environment.
Hi, I'm Justin Friesen. Nova Scotia is a beautiful province. Here on the East Coast, we are fortunate to witness the beauty of life on both land and sea. When the first settlers came to Nova Scotia, their lives depended on Nova Scotia's natural resources. Fishing and farming were the backbone of our forefathers' existence. They fished and farmed simply to feed themselves. Soon they realized that other resources could enhance their living. Trees were used not just for construction, but led to a massive pulp and paper industry. Mines yielded many minerals and ores for steel and other product manufacture. But when you harvest without thinking of the future, resources will run out, your means of making a living will end, and the natural environment, as you know it, will be changed forever. Nova Scotia has seen this happen. Some of our fish stocks are gone. Our mines have closed. We have toxic waste dumps and landfills, which will cost billions to clean up. Our jobs and economy have suffered. But Nova Scotia is turning the corner. Recycling and composting is one of the things that Nova Scotia is doing to stop these problems. We now have thousands of jobs in recycling and composting. Our problems with landfills and open burning dumps are almost a thing of the past. The rest of the world is also starting to take notice. I've spoken to a few of my friends across Canada. Here's what they had to say. Nova Scotia is leading Canada with its recycling and composting. What do you say to Nova Scotia for its hard work?
I congratulate Nova Scotians for the work they're doing.
I think we should say to Nova Scotia, well done.
Congratulations, Nova Scotia.
Good job, Nova Scotia.
I think you're right, Justin, to point out that it's young people who have the biggest stake of all.
I think what needs to happen in this country is changing people's perception on what garbage really is.
Hello, Justin. I'm sorry we did not get a chance to meet as planned, but I received your email and I will do my best to answer your questions. Like you, I am very happy about the efforts made by the people of Nova Scotia for the environment. I think that recycling and composting are two very important ways to help the environment, and that ranking first in Canada is something all Nova Scotians can be very proud of. Governments too can help, and we are working hard to keep our water clean, our air fresh, and to protect species at risk. But in the end, it's really people who can do the most for our planet by buying fuel-efficient cars, by using public transportation, and by recycling and composting. Just like you and so many other people in Nova Scotia. Congratulations to all of you, and keep up the good work.
Way to go, Nova Scotia! So you see, we're doing great, but this is just the beginning. We're 50% there. Let's get the next 50% so my kids have a future too. And don't just take my word for it. Do it.
Well, we've seen some wonderful examples of creativity and imagination and leadership from all areas, from government, from industry, small corporations, large corporations, and so on. One drawback of everything that we've seen so far, however, is that they've all been at the back end of the problem, when the waste or the discarded material reaches us at the end of their so-called useful life. And it is wonderful that there are people doing things, creative things, with the material at this end and prevent them from going to landfills and incinerators. But we've also got to recognize that zero waste focuses on the front end of the problem. We've got to have better industrial design at the front end, not just as good design to deal with the discards at the end, but trying to reduce the number of discards, the amount of discarded material that we have. And so at the launch of Target Zero Canada in November of 2000, I was asked to talk about the bigger picture that zero waste represented. Here it is. For me, after 16 years, zero waste is the most exciting development that I've experienced going through this battle. I've been largely involved with fighting incinerators and fighting landfills and promoting recycling. But what zero waste does is to underline the importance of recycling, but also to underline the limitations of recycling. We have to go beyond dealing with this problem at the back end. To give you some perspective of what's happening worldwide, this is a very young issue. The first time I think the words we used, zero waste, was in Canberra, Australia. Canberra, the capital, adopted a zero waste strategy in 1996, 4 years ago. They said no waste will go to landfill by the year 2010. That is their objective. If you look at the design of their landfill, it looks more like an airport than your traditional landfill. It's the government owns the infrastructure, and the idea is you franchise this out to the different industrial interests that can use those resources, either in simple mom-and-pop operations to reuse objects or to take those materials and recycle them, compost them. Some of the key organizers from Canberra went to New Zealand, thinking that they could make New Zealand the first zero-waste country. Now they have 38% of the municipalities have adopted zero waste by the year 2015. The Californians are not going to be left out. 2 counties in California, Del Norte and Santa Cruz, have adopted zero-waste strategies. But even more exciting from California is the same kind of news that Jed has talked about in the beer shop. What's it called? Beer? The beer store. Store. That's it. That's it. Same kind of thing in California. We have companies like Hewlett-Packard, which are getting over 90% reduction in their own waste stream. Fetzer breweries, again, 93%, I think. So corporations have seen the bottom line here. Recently in August, we had the meeting of grassroots people from over 12 countries in Asia, formed a group called Waste Not Asia. One of its principles is zero waste. This is the grassroots efforts there. Again, largely stimulated by fighting incinerators in Asia. Next week I go to South Africa, where we will be forming a worldwide group called Gaia, Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives. And again, that plank, well, one of the planks will certainly be zero waste. This is the grassroots. I'm talking grassroots here, but we are hearing this lovely, exciting stuff from industry. And basically what I think we're looking at is a transition from the 3 R's of waste management to the 3 E's of materials management or resource management. We all know what the 3 R's are. The 3 E's, I would suggest, are efficiency, economics, and ethics. Efficiency. Waste is the visible face of inefficiency. That's what it is. Economics. Economics says if you make less waste, you're more efficient. If you're more efficient, you save money, you save materials, you save energy, and of course, you create jobs. You need jobs because you need better designers, better organizers. Waste is not a high-tech problem. Waste is a low-tech problem. It's not magic machines. It's better design, better organization, better education, both at the municipality level and at the industrial level. And finally, ethics. Basically, what we're seeing here is an attempt to harmonize business interests with community interests. whether we define those community interests as local or global. It's a harmonization. The great late Erich Fromm wrote about the need to belong. But not only people need to belong to a community, but industries, corporations, companies also need to belong. They need to take root. The ecology of commerce, Paul Hawken, and that is the ethics of the issue in my view. As far as the grassroots is concerned, basically the Blue Box program with all its limitations showed everybody that the people were not the problem. We will take responsibility, the fourth R that's very seldom mentioned. We will take responsibility. Give us a box, give us one box, give us two boxes, give us three boxes. We will do what is needed. We will separate. We will separate the recyclables, we will separate the compostables, we will separate the toxics. We will do it. We were told in America we wouldn't do it, but we've done it. More people recycle in America than vote. Well, that probably says more about our political system than... But basically, there's a limit to what we can do at the back end of the problem. And what more and more communities are saying, if we can't reuse it, if we can't recycle it, if we can't compost it, you guys shouldn't be making it. We need a better industrial design compatible with the 21st century. And the people here, these zero-waste heroes, are the people that have accepted that challenge. This paradigm shift is a challenge. It's a challenge to industry and say, give me your creative people. Give me your people that can come up with elegant solutions. Give me your geniuses. Give me your people that are prepared to work at this issue at the front end. And as one of those other geniuses said, Einstein, a clever person solves a problem. A wise person avoids it. That's what we're talking about here. Thank you.
The role of government really should be to focus on the manufacturing side of things and saying to people who are making products, well, you need to be responsible for that product from the moment you manufacture it and all the waste that you generate in manufacturing it. But plus, that product is going to go to someone's house, be used, and then what happens to it? Then it becomes all of our problems, and it's the public funds that go towards dealing with that problem, as opposed to the manufacturing or the manufacturer saying, you know, when you're finished with your product, send it back to us and we will deal with it. We will take apart the component parts, we'll remanufacture them or melt them down and use them again. And that's really, ultimately, if we're going to reduce the waste, that's what has to happen.